Hey, girl.
Hey, how are you, Linda? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. We'll get started. I'm just setting things up, and we'll have a 5-minute intro, and then we'll go into the poll questions, and we'll have you speak deeper to the answers and how we overcome some of these challenges. So I'm looking forward to it.
So what I'll do is I'll just stop. I'm going to mute and stop video unless you call on me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, can you hear me?
You're kind of quiet.
Okay. I'm sorry. This morning has just kind of been a nightmare with my power. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna turn off my email. Okay, got Dwayne up there, Vanessa, Linda, lower hand.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead and put yourself on mute when you're ready.
Okay, perfect. So Audra, real quick, I'm just copying and pasting the chat, right? The Q&A in chat.
Yep, so that way we can put them all in an email as a follow-up for resources. So we just want to collect as many resources as possible to share with the entire group.
Okay, awesome.
All right, Audra,
Thank you,
I'm
Lindsay.
here. I'm muting and stopping my video.
Hey, Dr. D, thanks for being here. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our virtual roundtable on online lab learning. When we originally planned this event, we had not anticipated such an overwhelming response from the instructor community. Over 375 science instructors, department heads, and instructional designers across the country have registered and are present here today. Thank you for your engagement, first off, and seeking spaces to share your experiences and resources in a collaborative setting like this. It is an increasingly challenging time, as we all know, a time of disruption in the life of our country and world. And with this in mind, we hope that this event will act as a catalyst for resource sharing to aid in your transition to teaching your lab online. That said, our panelists are here to moderate the conversation and provide expert feedback when necessary. So our time together is efficient and effective. We have 30 minutes of polls and 15 minutes of Q&A, so there's not a lot of time to get through what we have on the calendar. Before we get into logistics and basic rules of the roundtable, I'd like to introduce our distance learning specialists and curriculum experts on the panel today. Linda Nelson is joining us from eScience Labs. Vanessa Clower is from Hands-On Labs. And we have a special guest today, Dr. Dwayne Cagle from Science Interactive Group. eScience Labs and Hands-On Labs, if you don't already know, work with over 650 institutions nationwide to provide comprehensive tactile lab kits and digital lab curriculum that allows students to have a robust, safe lab experience at home. So on to logistics of the roundtable. First, we encourage everyone to participate by asking questions and sharing resources using the chat function. Let me pull that slide up really quick so you guys know what you're working with. The chat function is on your toolbar, and then the left-hand screenshot here, you'll see what we're talking about. So all you have to do is click that chat. Make sure you toggle the to window to all panelists and attendees if you want everyone to know. So we encourage you guys to share any experience, resource, concerns that you have and have come to mind. Also, for questions, make sure you click the Q&A function in your toolbar, and this way we can track resources versus questions. At the end of this event, we will take everything that was shared today in this setting, put it in an email, and shoot it out along with the recording of this virtual webinar or virtual roundtable session to everyone who registered today. So yet again, we encourage you to share as much as possible. There is a large group, so we have to be extremely methodical. And let's go into now the logistics and how this is going to work. So today is going to be broken up into two sections. The first 30 minutes will be a series of 7 questions whose topics are focused around the online lab experience. Since the first 2 questions are exploratory, we'll only have to spend a minute on each. However, the final 5 questions take a deeper dive into the realm of labs in a distance learning setting. A total of 5 minutes will be allocated for each question, and when time's up, you'll hear an alarm, which means we must move on. So I want you guys to think of this as like resource sharing or resource finding, speed dating, a rapid fire of sharing as much as we can in a small amount of time. So here's what to expect before we move on. Each question is going to begin with a poll. So this is a great slide to see how we're going to do this. Each question will begin with a pop-up poll. You'll see this pop up on your screen. Find a response that's most applicable to you and then click submit. We'll share the results of each poll. We'll have our panelists speak to how our lab solutions can overcome any concerns or questions that you have. And then we'll call on a few attendees to specifically share their experience if you're willing. Throughout this, if you don't want to share verbally, no worries, just share that resource in the chat function. What next? So after the event concludes, as I mentioned, we will gather every resource that was shared today in the setting, and send it to you in an email so you have a comprehensive list of resources that's applicable to your lab or your lab course or transitioning your lab course online. Okay, are you guys ready? Oh, before we begin, if you are one of the attendees that would like to share your response verbally, all you have to do is raise your hand. So on the right-hand side here, this screenshot shows you how to do it. Your hand, when it's raised, turns green, and we can call on you, we'll unmute you, and then you can speak to the group. All right, are we ready? The first question is quite simple, as mentioned, so we're going to start this poll. Have you taught your lab as an online course in the past? I'll give you guys 10 seconds to get your responses in, and we're going to share it with the group. Wow. Wow. Thank you, you guys. We're getting a few more come in. Here's what our demographic looks like today, so you guys know who you're hanging out with. The majority of people here have not taught their lab online in the past. 11% of you have, 80% of you have not, and about 10% of you have done it in a hybrid fashion. Great. I'm going to share these results, just so you know. For those of you who have taught an online lab in the past, we ask you to really share anything that you know helped make your course in the past successful. Okay, the next question. Which science courses are you currently teaching? This will help us understand who is out there, what your specialty in your field is. I'm going to launch the poll.
It didn't move.
You can choose.
Screen needs to be, there we go. Thank you, Lindsay.
You can choose multiple here. Wonderful. Thanks, you guys. A lot of responses pouring in here. There's a good mix of instructors out there who teach chemistry, physics, biology, environmental science, microbiology, and we have a few others. For our others, will you in the chat function right now share what you do teach that's not on this list? And I'm going to share those results with everyone. We have astronomy, biochemistry, organic chemistry, nutrition, neuroscience. Thank you, you guys. This is wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to get into the more complex questions that will most likely help answer some of the concerns of the folks who have not taught online before. I'm going to launch that poll. This one, what are your main concerns of online courses, specifically science with the lab? Now, these are just basic options here. You may say none of these apply to me. If that's the case, click Other and share in the chat function what your concern is. All right, you guys. Can everybody see the poll? Yeah, there we go. I'll give you guys at least another 30 seconds to get your answers in here.
I'm not seeing the poll, Lindsay. I mean,
let me try again. Can you guys see it now? Wow. Okay, so I will tell you right now, since we're having some technical difficulties, what these responses look like. So what are your main concerns of online courses, specifically science with lab? We have learning curve, student safety, rigor, technology, student engagement, course integrity, ADA compliance, and other. Now, here we go. Looks like it's working again. Perfect. Wow. A lot of student engagement. And this is where, while you guys answer, I'm going to turn it over to Linda from eScience Labs and have her speak a little more about how we make sure our content and curriculum and lab kits engage students. So Linda, tell me a little more about what we do with the eScience curriculum that allows students to be engaged with what they're learning.
Thank you for the opportunity here, Audra. What in our products, what you'll find is we present it first off in bite-sized chunks. So when you actually start diving into the materials, we know that the students have a very limited amount of space for taking in knowledge. So we provide it, then we have knowledge checks. So we keep them engaged that way. Also throughout our protocols, we're going to provide videos and techniques. So again, they will stay engaged in the product because we know they also respond that way as well to the videos.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Dwayne, we have a lot of safety concerns out there right now. How does the HOL curriculum ensure student safety?
Well, first and foremost, we make sure we ship safe materials to students. Chemicals that are, for them as much as possible, non-toxic and non-volatile. If we're talking about microbiology, that we ship, non-pathogenic strains of microbes, so forth and so on. And then more importantly than that even is just like in a face-to-face course, the first exercise and activities that students perform before beginning experiments is a lab safety lesson. And it assures that students know not only how to use their equipment in the proper fashion in a safe manner, but also what to do in case of an accident or emergency. So students are prepared in advance for anything that might go wrong. Having said that, things usually don't go wrong, and when they do, no injuries are incurred by students.
Great, thank you, Dr. D. We had another question come through that I thought was pertinent to this topic, and my concern is that students have no hands-on experience in labs if everything is online. Dr. D, can you speak to that, please?
Absolutely. So, our first and foremost passion when we design labs for online/remote students is that they do have hands-on activities. We know as educators that students learn science best by performing experiments, i.e. by doing science. It's a very tactile learning process for science students. Now, having said that, there are certain topics, as you might imagine, being an educator and teaching on campus, that we can't replicate from a home and remote environment. In what we're currently branching into, and I've already implemented in one of our disciplines in physics, is we have hybrid labs now, where a student conducts a hands-on activity, and then in a follow-up exercise uses a simulation where they input various parameters, run the simulation. It provides them with a data set that the student can then analyze. This allows students, certainly in the realm of physics, to get more standardized data from procedures. It really reduces the rate of error that we see. And also allows us to teach some concepts that otherwise would be prohibited due to equipment cost that we see in an on-campus lab. But first and foremost, anytime we can design a procedure with a physical material that we can provide a student, that is our #1 priority.
Thank you, Dr. D. Appreciate that. I saw a few hands go up. I'm going to call on people to actually come off of mute and speak more to maybe a concern or a resource. And the first person that had raised their hand was Professor Melissa Daggett. If you would like to, let me see if I can, there we go, share your concern or resources. I just took you I think I took you off mute.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I think I accidentally raised my hand.
Okay, no problem. That's all right. I will lower it for you.
Okay.
We had a couple other people. Professor Nita Sharma, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. I'm going to allow you to talk and unmute you here. If you wanted to share anything that was on your mind, please do.
Yes, hi. My concern is, I think we are talking about people suggesting students to get their own material, or they are sending the material to the students with the directions to do the labs at home. I'm thinking about in terms of the simulation platform like Beyond Labs or Labsters. Has anybody used it, and how successful they were in modification of some of those experiments according to the needs that they were looking for?
Dr. D, do you want to jump in there?
I can comment, but it sounds like the person with the question was wanting more of the experience from colleagues out there. You know, my opinion of simulated lab procedures, like from Labster and all, is yes, they have some relevance, but at the same time, what I find myself doing when I use such software, and what I hear from students or other educators and that their students do is sometimes we can fall into the, you know, click to win game plan, as it's called sometimes with virtual labs, meaning as a student, I don't necessarily have to master anything, but if I simply click enough times, I get the outcome that the program is requiring. And I think that's a challenge of virtual labs versus simulations. And we make the distinction on our end, as a simulation, a student controls inputs and receives data after watching this procedure occur. Whereas a virtual lab, a student is manipulating animations to get to a desired outcome. But anyway, I don't want to take up the time from that question. I would rather get the audience's feedback. I think that's what the original person who posed the question was looking for.
And it looks like too in the chat function that Carla, one of the attendees, actually uses Labster, and she had mentioned to just ask her directly, Nita. So feel free to use the attendees today in the webinar as a resource to reach out and get more clarification on their experience with this product. I'm going to have one more attendee. We had a Professor Weinberg raise his hand. I'm going to allow you to come off of mute and share whatever it is that's on your mind.
I did not raise my hand, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, we're gonna stop sharing, let's move on. Great job, you guys. Also, for anyone who added other in the polling section, please share what your concern is so that way we can find resources and follow up with you on applicable things you're looking for. Question 4. For the instructors who have taught their lab online in the past, and we know that's only about 11% of the people attending today, what worked for you? So the poll is launching. I hope you guys see it this time. Ooh, I'm gonna go back to Stephanie Thompson. It doesn't look like it's showing up. I'm going to try again, and I'll just relaunch it. We'll see. No. I'll try one more time.
I see. Oh, it was there. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, Linda. Cool. So you have LMS integration, video resources, lab manual instructions, customization, e-learning platform, third-party support, and other. And then I also want to call on a attendee who had something to share. Stephanie Thompson, Professor Thompson, let me pull you off mute really quick, and that way you can address the group Fine. There you are. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Professor Thompson. Yes.
Hi, good morning, everybody, or I guess good afternoon for wherever you guys are at. I'm actually in the middle of another Zoom right now with my students, but I have somebody co-hosting. So anyway, I wanted to share that. So I work for Medical Laboratory Technology, and we are a community college, and we are currently, of course, just like everybody else, are struggling to figure out what are we going to do with, you know, getting these hands-on things for the students, especially because we're now having to move our clinicals online. And so normally the students will go out to the hospital, and so we're trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do? So one thing I did do is I would do my labs as I normally would, except I use pre-recorded videos. So I would say, you know, this is how we would do this procedure. And then they would be able to watch the procedure, and then we would, you know, come on Zoom and discuss. And then as their video assignment, or as their assignment, I gave them a video assignment. And I said, all right, well, now I want you guys to take this procedure and explain it, you know, as if you were either to explain it to a new employee or somebody else. So they had to take a video of themselves, or audio was fine too, because my students tend to be a little bit more shy. And so what I was really proud of is that some students really took, you know, turned it into a project. And I said, you know, get creative. You know, this is, we've never really done this before, but get creative. Use what you can around your house. And so one student did, and she made, she used like the tops of mayonnaise jars to turn them into culture plates. And then she did the catalase test, and she used vinegar and baking soda to make the bubbling. I was like, girl, you are genius. So, you know, really getting the students to get creative and I think will help as far as getting them to do stuff. So I'm still trying to figure out, you know, and that's why I'm here today, you know, to see what you guys got. What else around the house can we use, you know, to kind of make a makeshift lab?
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Do you mind me asking what platform you use to record these videos?
Right now we're using Zoom.
Great. Awesome. Professor, thank you so much for your input. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, you guys, this is great. Thank you for that. If you know of any labs that you can use with, you know, household materials to get things done or add on to something that's already part of your course, go ahead and share that in the chat function right now. I shared the results of this last poll. For the instructors who have taught their lab online past, what worked for you? And we heard video resources, a great response. About 40% of you out there said so. And we have a few people who, nobody said third-party support. Now, this is something that you should look into. There are lab solution providers like Hands-On Labs and eScience Labs that are a turnkey solution for a lot of this, and there's customization potential that you can take the content that we've pre-built and then also customize it to your own personality. Dr. D, can you talk a little bit about what the cloud functionality is with customization?
Sure. Hands-On Labs delivers all of our curriculum on a cloud-based platform that does integrate into an institution's learning management system. But all of the software tools that internal authors use to build the curriculum on that platform, those tools are available to educators. Meaning that you, as Audra had said, can truly customize a course to best meet the needs of your students and your syllabus and your curriculum requirements overall. And that includes not only adding content from a textual standpoint, but also uploading videos that you've already shot. Maybe yourself conducting procedures or conducting a field trip, and also uploading any variety of image files. So you can upload graphs, high definition photographs, diagrams, etc. So you have all the tools to build content as you see fit. Thanks, Audra.
Thanks, Dr. D. For those who answered other, I would love for you to share what worked for you in the chat function. So when we're done here, we can go back and grab those things and add them to as resources for this specific question for the group. Then we're going to stop there. We'll go on to the next question. Thank you, everybody. this. Pull. Oops. We have a problem with our slides here. Here we go. So for instructors who haven't taught online in the past, this is for you guys, 80% of the group, what does course success mean for you? Student engagement, course rigor, accessibility, ease, material quality, customization potential, and other. Student engagement, yet again, is the winner by far. And then course rigor is in a good second place. Vanessa, I'm going to call on you. Vanessa from Hands-On Labs. What do we do to make sure our curriculum is rigorous at Hands-On Labs? Vanessa? I know Vanessa's been having some issues with her power today and internet, so I'm going to pass this off to Dwayne. Dwayne, again, could you jump in and talk a little more about our review process when curriculum is written in-house?
Sure. For all the curriculum that we host and build on our cloud platform, we have it reviewed by at least 3 educators in the subject matter field. These do not need to be educators that necessarily teach online. They just need to have a sizable portfolio for courses and years taught in a particular subject. We're very much about peer review internally also, but again, when we design curriculum, it's not just something that we think is important for online students. It's something we send out and modify accordingly based on the feedback from current educators at institutions around the country.
Awesome. I would love for a few first-time online lab teachers here to share verbally their concerns. If you're willing to speak up right now, just raise your hand and we'll, okay, great. Professor Watkins, I'm gonna unmute you. Hi, Professor Watkins. Let's see here, I'm just trying to unmute her. Oh.
Unmute myself, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. How's everyone doing today? I'm literally in the process. I have actually, first, my training is in computational chemistry. So naturally, I gravitate towards a lot of simulations, but I recognize how much more my students learn from actually being able to pour chemicals, and a lot of the critical thinking skills that you expect some college students to have, they just may not have developed just yet. So for me, one of my main concerns is, one, making sure that they know bare minimum, what does density mean? And what does that mean physically? So my current course that I'm teaching is in is chemistry in modern society. So it's actually application of chemistry to everything going around them. So the current chapter is applying chemistry to medicine and health right now. And so for me, my biggest concern is, one, them getting those critical thinking skills of how to read a meniscus on a graduated cylinder, how to actually properly weigh something on a scale, just being able to gauge. That's my biggest concern for me personally.
Dr. D, can you share anything in your wisdom that might make this professor feel a little better about maybe using an option where it's a lab kit in tandem with curriculum?
Well, I think to address the question and the concern, I think a best practice, regardless of the modality used for the students to complete procedures, is that students actually photograph or film themselves doing the lab, and more importantly, their results. So I know that the commenter mentioned properly weighing compounds or items, and have the student place the material on the scale, and actually take a photograph of the output of the scale. You know, this is big, for example, in microbiology. If students are expected to isolate colonies or identify unknowns, so forth and so on, it is really to expect the student to include, you know, photographic proof of their work. You know, from a business standpoint, in our curriculum in the platform, it easily allows students to drag and drop images of their completed procedures in-house, along with answers to questions and things such as that. But regardless, again, I think a best practice for teaching something online, since you're not able to view your students and what they're doing, is to always require them to upload photographs of their results.
Thank you, Dr. D. Linda, can you speak very quickly before we move on accessibility with eScience Lab curriculum?
Certainly. So a couple of things regarding accessibility. We are ADA compliant and certainly can provide a VPAT for any administrators that need that. And I did want to speak brief comment regarding the content and what you're looking for. Extremely grateful that we have PhDs on staff. When I work as faculty member, the first thing I say is send me the list of labs and topics that you're currently using. I send it in and they go line by line, item by item, match it to our offerings, and then I present it back to faculty. And there are, you know, times where you're looking for something specific that we may not have, that hopefully you might be able to utilize another open resource on the internet to suffice. But we do a very, very diligent job in aligning exactly with the topic that you're trying to accomplish in your labs.
Super insightful. Thank you so much, Linda, for that. For those of you who raised their hand that we couldn't get to, will you please take the time right now to either, whatever you were going to say, add it to the chat function or put it in as a question, because we're going to come back to the Q&A panel at the end. We're almost done here. Next question. So, okay. When teaching first-time lab students in introductory courses, what resources have you used in the past to teach lab techniques in a distance learning setting? I just launched the poll. Hopefully that'll come up soon on your screen. Maybe not. I'll try one more time. Zoom's giving me a run for my money today. Just launched. Yeah, there we go. Great. Thank you. Give you guys 10 seconds to get your answers in. You know, it's a big concern. A student who hasn't been in a lab before doesn't know proper techniques. And so how do we make sure to keep them safe and really send home the most important techniques that are consistently used no matter which lab course you're enrolled in? So we have a lot of instructional videos. Of course, videos are so very helpful. About 50% of the attendees out there are weighing in on instructional videos. A lot of people are saying YouTube, a bunch of free resources on there. Step-by-step technique guides are up there as well. And teacher webinars, we have a few responses there. So I'll give you guys a few more minutes. And Linda, will you please talk to us about what it is we have, what resources eScience uses and leverages to make sure that these first-time students who may not know about techniques can grasp those concepts?
Certainly. Before beginning utilizing any of our products, there is procedures and a lab to get started using your lab. So we're going to make sure that they're well aware. We're going to work with faculty, provide them the information that they need to transcend to the students as it relates to your kit. The first thing to do is, here's the list of items that should be in your kit. Check to make sure they're there. And so faculty will assign these getting started pieces at the beginning to make sure they're, you know, just starting the process to get involved. But again, it's a requirement prior to getting started. Also, requirement related to, and I'm sure it's going to come up, so I'll speak to it now. There is insurance for all students that work with our products is $100,000 liability insurance. And what that means is they are following our product protocols, our procedures. They will be covered in their environment as long as they're utilizing, again, our protocols and procedures.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dr. D, can you talk a little more about, too, for the HOL curriculum, what we include for resources in the course or experiment to help students really grasp some unusual concepts?
Certainly, and I want to go back to best practices in teaching online students. It is different than teaching on campus. You know, if you take a traditional lab manual that either you've designed or your institution has designed in-house to really meet the needs of the courses taught at your institution, or just as importantly, you know, a commercial lab manual from one of the major publishers out there, and you read through those procedures, more often than not, you can quickly tell that, yeah, this is certainly designed to be taught on campus. Meaning, you know, someone needs to be there to more thoroughly explain and demonstrate procedures that students are going to need to be successful with the experiment. You know, your remote science student is in a very different world. And like has already been brought up, many of them have no laboratory experience at all, at least post-high school. And so we can't assume when we want to instruct a remote student that they already know how to do something. And we can't assume that they can simply read some instructions and figure things out. Because again, no one's there to answer their questions. And therefore, no one's there to, you know, prohibit the student from becoming frustrated and losing focus. So resources that we include in our laboratory curriculum are videos of all common protocol procedures and setups, very direct and detailed instructions for how to proceed with an experiment. And then most importantly of all is multiple photographs of the laboratory equipment and the proper setup of that laboratory equipment after every few steps within the experiment, so that the student is visually guided through the procedures. And like I said, again, that is paramount for remote science students, because they can't look at the lab bench adjacent to theirs and see what their classmates are doing. And they can't raise their hand and have their lab instructor walk over and explain things to them. You know, they are on their own. The good news is, when done successfully, you know, a lot of those students come away with an overall better understanding of the concepts that were being presented in their lab than some of their on-campus peers, because they did have to perform the procedures on their own and, you know, be successful through their own actions.
Thank you, Dr. D. I saw something come through really quickly before we move on to our last question. It was, are the labs and the kits kid safe? She has a lot of students in her GOB course that actually have kids at home. So we're just wondering about, you know, how safe these materials really are.
Well, certainly. And as I alluded to before, we select materials that have as little toxicity levels as possible. And then certainly with our safety prerequisite lesson, part of that is involved with, where do I conduct my experiments as a student? You know, how do I keep these materials safe from not only my children, but also my pets? You'd be surprised how often pets can get into someone's lab kit. So, and again, we've provided instructions for all of this. I mean, ideally, something should be safe for the kit user, being the student. Obviously, as a side effect, it's going to be safe for their family members and their pets. And then again, the student is always instructed of where to store these items when they're not in use, so they are out of reach of children and pets.
Thank you, Dr. D. Okay, let's move on to the last question. I'm sorry, we're running a little behind. Here we go. We're going to launch this poll. Oops. Here we go. So this one is about finding a lab partner. What is the most important criteria to you when choosing an online lab solutions provider? Can you guys see the poll? Okay, we'll try it again. Sorry about the technical difficulties. All right, I just launched again. Hope it works this time. There we go. We have resources, robust technology, turnkey solution, ease of use, rigor of curriculum, cost, and other. As I thought. As these responses come in, it looks like cost is a big one. Linda, can you speak briefly about how we are conscious of cost when putting together these courses for instructors?
Certainly. By all means, we're going to work with the instructors to provide a kit that meets the needs of your institution, and certainly keeping it in mind of the financial situation. A lot of times that comes down to looking at, are there labs that we might be able to substitute something that's just a virtual nature or electronically. So we understand that need in coming up with that solution. Also, because it's important for those who don't know, we do work with bookstores. We understand the need for students to utilize financial aid. So we have options and can work with them as far as that's concerned. Also note, with these days and times and what's going on, we can provide access codes directly to a bookstore, so the bookstore can exchange that, and that way those students will not have to come on to campus or anything of that nature. But we are always conscious of the cost and work together to provide a solution that will fit in your requirements.
Thank you. I know too that part of our process here is making sure that it's a case-by-case basis. When we talk to the instructors, we listen to your needs, and we can align an online course based on what you're looking for. Dr. D, a lot of people weighed in and said resources were important, robust technology somewhat, ease of use somewhat, and yet again, rigorous curriculum. The HOL Cloud is an e-learning platform. How is this platform functional? Like, what additional features do we offer for teachers versus students? So we haven't really gotten into the teachers part, but what can the teachers expect to see in the actual HOL Cloud?
So on the instructor side, we have paid attention to the needs of today's educators, certainly today's online educators. First and foremost, they want any third-party platform curriculum to fully integrate into their school's learning management system. And we've made sure we can do that, certainly with all the major learning management systems out there today. Secondly, instructors, I know a big part of your time is spent teaching is actually not teaching, but grading. So we've made sure our curriculum today consists of at least an equal mix, if not more weighted towards auto-graded student responses. So these auto-graded responses simply require you, the instructor, to assign point values to each of the question types. And then the system can compile the student's grade for you. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, this is a science course. What about data tables? What about open-ended questions? And you're absolutely correct. For those two elements of a student's submission, there is no great auto-grading program software out there these days that I've seen. So to assist you in grading those, we do provide detailed instructor answer keys. They're housed within our gradebook tool on the HOL Cloud platform, which easily allows you to grade by student or by question across all the students in your course. Once you've completed your portion of the grading, due to learning management system integration, those grades can port directly into the permanent gradebook for your course housed in your learning management system. And then we already talked a little bit about HOL Cloud being an open platform, meaning that you can use all the same instructor authoring tools that we curriculum developers use on our end to create custom lab experiences for your students, to create custom exams for your students, or use the platform however you see fit to best accommodate your course.
Thanks, Dr. D. Thanks, you guys, for all of your engagement. We're going to move into the Q&A. So right now we have about 21 questions. I'm only going to set aside another 10 minutes for this. Anything that's not answered, we will be following up with you to make sure that you did receive the resources that you needed, and to clarify any questions that you may have. So I want to do this back and forth rapid fire. Linda, we have a question. Can this be done for summer courses starting in June?
We sure can. We're definitely ready to go. We understand, obviously, when this situation came about, so we're working to get items from our providers, suppliers, and vendors. So we are certainly in the process of doing that at this time.
Awesome, thank you. Dwayne, can the kits be shipped to the students, and how do we know what is included? You said it can be customized, and how can it be customized?
It can be customized from the standpoint of our experiment library. As you see on the screen right now, there are hundreds of lessons that are available in multiple disciplines. So if you have, for example, what I consider to be kind of a crossover discipline, such as environmental science, which for a lot of institutions is equal parts chemistry and biology, and maybe sometimes even a little bit of geology. You can certainly combine labs from all those disciplines into a kit. We do specialize in logistics as far as moving kits around, meaning we can ship direct to students, which is preferable, during, unfortunately, this pandemic. But we can also ship in bulk to bookstores for the more traditional distribution method, should that be required by your institution. And then, I don't know if there's a follow-up question to that or not, Audra, but that's what I think you just asked.
Thank you. Here's an interesting question, and Linda, I'll have you take this. Does your company expect to meet the demand for mailing physical lab kits for summer sessions, or should I plan to only have access to simulations for the time being? It's a true concern.
As I mentioned, we are definitely prepared. So we have the warehouse, the volume, the space to start doing that at this time. During the fall time, it's not unheard of for us to do 30,000 kits as a company or more so. So by all means, we're prepared, and that's why we're having conversations now. Of course, certainly, the sooner you make a decision on your kit, that would be the best situation, but we definitely are prepared.
Thank you. Dr. D, is there any research on the effectiveness of student learning using at-home kits, assessment on this model of learning?
There hasn't been a ton, Audra, but what research that has been, and I believe we have some white papers floating out there, but nonetheless, is what I alluded to earlier, that students that are successful conducting laboratories off campus, studies have been shown they do learn more efficiently because they're not simply observing someone else, i.e. their lab partner, conducting procedures. Like more often than not can happen in an on-campus lab environment. You know, it's not unheard of for students to be grouped in threes, maybe even fours these days, sharing equipment on a lab bench. And we've all seen as instructors that one student in that scenario always takes the lead and is the most hands-on of the group. Compared to students conducting these procedures off campus, they are conducting them on their own. And so their success or failure lies completely on their own actions of setting up procedures and correctly conducting the protocols. So it's not surprising that the overall learning outcomes are slightly stronger from what research shows for these remote students conducting hands-on experiments.
And if anybody attending right now knows of research that has been done or compiled or report, please feel free to share that in the chat section. We'll hunt it down and share it in our follow-up email. We had a question about LMS integration from Professor Jasana. Yes, both of our products, they integrate with your LMS, and we actually have an in-house LMS specialist that can walk you through what that looks like and how to do it on your end. So yes. Another question, how is quantitative experimentation done? Mass, volume, ... Dwayne, do you want to jump in here since curriculum is your forte?
Sure. Well, we do provide precision scales that measure to 1/100th of a gram from a quantitative standpoint. We offer volumetric flasks, a variety of graduated cylinders. So those three implements are predominantly the quantitative devices that students have easy access to, although there are others to less degree, you know, within our kits. But that's a great question and a very valid concern.
Linda, this one's for you. What kind of equipment is in the eScience kits? Do the students get a balance, a burette, et cetera? And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing some of these things.
The student is going to get whatever items they need to perform that lab, from the scales to fetal pigs to dissection materials and items. So certainly whatever's necessary. And again, I'm not the subject matter expert, but as a part of your review process, you as a professor can see all items that the student would need in each of the labs that would come in the kit. And then we also have items that the students would be expected to provide themselves in certain situations, be it water, obviously a timer from a phone in that situation, but certainly you would see all those specifics.
Thank you, Linda. Dwayne, do you recommend running labs synchronously, so all students work simultaneously, or asynchronously? Good question.
So a big difference in the student experience and just the reality of who traditionally has been the online student versus the on-campus student. And I realize these comparisons are very muddied right now due to the pandemic, but pandemic notwithstanding, the traditional online student, and I know one of the attendees today mentioned their GOB chemistry students. Traditionally, online students have jobs and have families, and they're juggling a lot. And so from that standpoint, almost the asynchronous modality has been successful a little more for those online students in the past versus everyone conducting the same lab at the same time, like your on-campus students do. I mean, both systems can work as far as how the HOL Cloud platform presents the lab manual to students. The instructor actually chooses to require either sequential completion or random completion of labs, again, based on the needs of your course. So, but do keep in mind that once your students go remote, whether they plan to or not, that they may have a few more challenges than they did when they were either living on campus or certainly attending classes on campus.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions and comments and concerns about how students are going to be able to afford the cost of these kits right now. I want to spend some time and get both feedback from Linda and Dr. D on what is the range that the prices of the kits can range from.
We have standard kits that are $98. I can, off the top of my head, in geology and, in physics, intro physics, and chemistry. And we do have the standard. It's just going to vary by the number of your labs. Even now, there might be labs that are created just to suffice for this end of the semester, right? So just 2 or 3 labs, whereas a semester might look more like 12 labs. Again, it's all comes down to the number of labs that you select in your custom kit.
And Dr. D, is that the same for hands-on labs as well?
I'd like to add from the hands-on labs company standpoint, we're really all about customization and designing kits exactly around the curriculum that you need. We have a fair number of clients that I can think of, they only use 2 or 3 hands-on labs for their course in general. Maybe the requirements of their school don't require that everything that a student does be a real hands-on experiment. We have other schools that instead of doing just a few hands-on and then other like pen and paper simulation labs, we have other schools that, for the needs of their course, the student is only required to do 2 or 3 experiments, period. So, and then as you might imagine, on the other end of that spectrum, like the traditional on-campus lab, a lot of institutions do require students to complete 12 to 14 independent labs per quarter or semester. So obviously, the volume of experiments represented within a course, and therefore a kit, greatly determines the cost. But again, the choice is yours as the educator, and the choice is somewhat your institution's too, as far as what standards they have set up for the courses that are taught through them. But again, we're very, very flexible in whatever your institution requires.
Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for. And if cost is a serious issue, we're more than happy to work with you to make sure that the lessons included are the most cost sensitive. But it's hard to give one specific price because it ranges depending on the situation. We're running out of time here. And so I know we didn't get through the majority of these questions, but in our follow-up email, we'll provide all the answers to the questions that you provided. Before I let you guys go, I would like for you to use the chat function to tell us if we were to host another one of these virtual roundtables in the future, in a couple weeks from now. What would you like to see that you weren't able to see today? So please provide any feedback, constructive criticisms, things that you would like to witness, resources in your chat function, and we'll make sure that our next event is more tailored towards what you guys are looking to see. I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that, and I just want to thank everyone, not only our panelists, but the attendees out there who are trying to make this transition to online lab learning. It's not an easy time, but with the right resources, and if we come together, we can get through this challenge. And we are here to be your resource. Please know that. We will take your feedback into consideration so these events are more tailored towards what you need. And before I let you go, I want to end on a light note, a little song that I think is really applicable to what we're going through right now. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. We'll touch base soon.